It's your girl, DocSunne, and you are joining me for another episode of A Dope Chick Spiritual Journey. And I brought back a familiar face, season 2, my girl, Tanorah. So if you watched season 1, you would have seen her. She was my debut episode, Soul Stirring Risk. And we had such a great conversation around this concept of risk, taking chances, stepping out on faith, and doing things that like make you uncomfortable but set you up for where you want to go in life. And I thought it fitting that she kind of like round out 2022 and kick us off into 2023. So Tanorah, for those of you who didn't see you, they should have seen you in the first episode. But for those of you who didn't, tell the good people who you are.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I am Tanorah StJohn. I love to say I am a native New Yorker. I've been living in Maryland for now over 20 years. My profession started out in social work as a licensed therapist. And then I got introduced to the sweet world of transformation. It
Yes.
introduced me to coaching. And I had gone back to school, and now I'm also a certified life coach. And it is my absolute passion.
Yeah. Yeah. What's your company's name again?
Soul restoration.
Soul Restoration. So that is why your episode was named Soul Stirring Risk, right? Because it was this idea that from our souls, from our heart, from our spirit, there's this push, right? There's this energy that's kind of behind us telling us to take these risks or these leaps. And
Hmm.
so I wanted us to come back together, expand on that conversation, mainly because, this is around the time where people are preparing vision boards and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
doing their SMART goals. And I don't like to call them resolutions, like New Year resolutions, but it's around this time where people start to reflect on what is it that I want for this upcoming year and for this upcoming season. And so I thought it fitting that we take this conversation around divinity and God and risk, and how, risk and faith can propel us forward. So when you think of just risk, right? I know in our first episode, you talked about some risks that you've taken, but right now in your life, where does the concept of risk and faith fit in for you?
Definitely around career, because I'm looking at taking I would call it my second big leap in my career
Mm-hmm.
as I break off from my role as a therapist and totally delve into being a life coach completely independently.
Mm.
So the big leap that I took back in 2016, I was working at an outpatient mental health clinic full time as a therapist, and had my kids were toddlers at the time. Um, and life was pretty stressful for me. I had these really high caseloads, lots of paperwork. That 9 to 5, it was like a hustle.
Yeah.
And then after that, I would take off my therapist hat, put on my mommy hat, and that was like my second job.
Yeah.
And it was a lot for me. And I was feeling like there was this cookie cutter approach to life that we were all supposed to fit into that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't working for me. That 40-hour work week sometimes is more. Then you hustle from that to doing the next thing. And it was just like, where do we have time to just kind of be still and breathe? How do
Yes.
we feed our soul and have time to nurture ourselves if we're always on the run? And so I had a desire for a different lifestyle that wasn't commonly seen around me. I knew that I really wanted to have control over my schedule. And that was the start of me thinking about how I would make a transition, which turned into my leap, one of the biggest and best leaps I've ever taken.
Really?
Yes, yes. And I'm still reaping the benefits of that. Um, Two of my highest values are freedom and fulfillment.
Oh,
And the freedom to control my own schedule has been everything to me.
so hold on a second. So say that again. Two of your highest values.
Yes, are freedom
Uh-huh.
and fulfillment.
How did you come to be aware of that? Right. I asked that question because I know people will watch, they'll watch these episodes and they'll hear my guests say things or they hear me say things. And I think some of the reasons why I pause is because I want to give listeners and viewers like the option to do the same for themselves. How did you come to know that those were two high value areas for you? Like where did that epiphany come from? Like what was the process?
From being coached. So
Mm,
I am an advocate of giving myself what I need.
yes.
And whether that is a therapist or a coach or a personal trainer,
Yes.
whatever it is that I'm up to, I'm going to put a structure in my life that will help me fulfill on it.
Mm,
And in one of those coaching experiences, we were looking at what are our values, what really drives us, what really speaks to us. And as women, because we tend to be nurturers and caregivers, what they actually had us do was look at, what do you want for your loved ones? And what I saw that stood out the most was, I want them to be free and I want them to be fulfilled. And
wow.
that's what I want for myself also.
Mm,
And so it was through coaching that I was able to deepen my self-awareness and understand myself on that level.
yeah.
And what that was looking like in the area of career was having control over my time. Control over my time. I
Good.
love it. I can smile when I say it now because I'm there. But before that, my employers had control over my time.
40 hours at
Yes,
least.
yes, and right, because some people it's more. And I
Mhm.
don't want to make that wrong because that works for some people.
That does, yes.
And actually, for most of my life as a childless woman, it was okay.
Mm,
But when I decided to have a family, that's when it came really tight and was no longer the best fit for me. I just,
right.
I just, I wanted it to look different.
Yeah. You know what, too, Tanora, to that point, I think another way to look at it, and you know what I'm gonna say, is that and both, right? You can have a period of your life where that does work for you, and then you cycle into a period of your life where it doesn't work for you because it doesn't align with your values. And so to your point, I think people are watching and we don't want to ever make anyone feel like the life they're living is wrong. If it feels right for you, then it's right for you. But you're saying you came to a phase in your life where it no longer aligned with your high level values.
Yes. And what I encourage people to do is, when something is no longer in alignment with who you are or who you aspire to be, acknowledge that. Allow yourself to see it so that you can begin to create what's next for you.
Mm,
To me, I think evolution is the name of this game that we call life. I
yeah,
think that we're here to evolve.
yeah,
And so I want to normalize the process of taking leaps in your life and expanding, because I think that that's part of why we're here, a huge part. So I don't think that we're necessarily here to do the same thing until till the end.
expire. Mhm.
Right. And so there's always a higher expression of who you are. And I think that it's okay to let yourself see that.
Yeah. I, it's almost too like we believe there's development physically, right? So we are clear that a baby, right, developmentally at some point goes from crawling to walking to running, right?
Mhm.
Developmentally, we know that there's that process for most. We know that there is a process mentally and emotionally, right? There's certain things that when our child reaches a certain age, there's an expectation, oh, they shouldn't really be doing those things anymore. It's funny, but in other areas of our lives, we don't have the same connection that it should evolve, that our
Mm,
careers should evolve, that relationships should evolve. It's like, oh yeah, I know my body evolves,
right.
right? I know my mind evolves and changes, but people get so trapped thinking that, oh, I have this career or this position and it's supposed to be like this my entire life.
Right, right. And that's kind of like the cookie cutter approach I was referring to, because I think that that was pretty common in our parents or our grandparents' generation. You if you went to school, you get out of school, you work for a company for 40 years, and then you can retire and enjoy life.
And then
And
enjoy life.
yes, yes. And there may be some folks out there that are getting their enjoyment in while they're doing the 40 years of working, right? But I don't think we have to be locked into it looking a certain way. I think that we have more say in how it goes than we give ourselves credit for.
Mm.
And I'm all about taking on self-determination and you deciding what fits for you and then looking at how can you create that.
Mm. Yeah.
And it was that thought process that had me looking at, okay, I know I want my life to look different. So I want to pivot towards that and see how I can create that outcome.
Yeah. So how was the trend? So okay, let's back up, right? Because that's a big leap, right? For a lot of people watching, they're like, okay, the leap, it's financial. You have children, you have responsibilities, there's health insurance, there are different aspects of our lives. And I know people are thinking, well, I want to make a big leap, I want to make a career change, but I have all of these considerations.
Yes.
I have all of these things. What were some of the considerations for you when you came to the realization, I'm moving from here to here because this is in alignment with what I want? But what were the considerations in between that may have paused you, stopped you, made you like hesitant, nervous?
So, how would I attract the clientele to have a
Okay.
thriving business was a concern, which automatically ties into income. How can I match or exceed what I was accustomed to? And how long was it going to take to make that happen? So time was a factor.
Okay.
And I think it's good to identify what the concerns are. See, some people get an idea, and because they don't know how it's going to happen, they don't even allow themselves to be with the idea for long. They just
Mm,
dismiss it. And
yes.
I didn't want to do that to myself because trust, if the idea is coming to you, it's because you have what it takes to manifest it.
Right.
So trust that. And so identify your concerns and then think about what you need in order to have this come to fruition.
Yeah.
And so for me, I said, okay, it's probably going to take a while for me to build a clientele and for me to at least match the income I'm used to. So, what do I want to do about that? And I had this idea maybe I can register for a temp agency. As a therapist and social worker, they have temp assignments where, like, if somebody's on maternity leave and they need you to cover them, you can
Yeah.
come in temporarily. And so they know that you're not there to stay. You don't have to necessarily give a long advance notice of when you're going to leave. So it was just something that would be temporary.
Mm.
So I said, here's what my game plan is going to be. I'm going to stay at my full-time job. I'm going to start doing a private practice and I'm going to let that build, but at some point it's going to build too much where I can't do that and the full-time job.
Right.
At that point, I'm going to exit the full-time job, take on a temp assignment, and I'm going to do them both until my clientele builds up enough where I can live off of that and I no longer need the temp assignment.
Mm.
And it was a game plan that I could trust.
Right.
And once I knew that's what I was going to do, and kind of did some research, like what are some temp agencies, what do I have to do to register with them. But once I knew that part, I knew I was going to take the leap. There was
Mm.
no doubt in my mind, and that I did. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, Sunny, I've never regretted it. Okay, it was well worth it. And having a game plan, I can't say enough about that. That is very
Yeah.
helpful because in doing that, no bill went unpaid and no child went unfed.
Okay. Okay. So, this is my podcast is always about a dope chick spiritual journey, right? So when you think of your faith, you think of your relationship with the higher power, with God, what were some of the tools, the strategies, like, because for me, working with people, not just the consulting firm, but the spiritual mentoring work with people, it's being able to get people to think differently, right? To
Yeah.
change what is between their ears. For you, what were the practices that you had to put in place to get you past, right? So you had the strategy, but I'm sure once the strategy was in place, there were moments where Did you second guess yourself? Did you like wonder whether I made the right decision? And if so, how did you get over those humps and those hurdles?
So before I put the strategy in place, I knew that I wanted something different. I wasn't sure how that was going to look or what that was going to entail, what the process would be, or any of that. But I believe, and this is from my spiritual teachings,
Yeah.
that there is this inner guidance that's always leading you,
Mm.
and it's often guiding you on a path of least resistance based on your personal interests, what you enjoy. So I said, you know what? I had learned some time ago that having a structure in place is what helps you fulfill on a task. For example, years ago, I had a personal trainer who was also a bodybuilder. And I remember her telling me when she really wants to get fit, she'll put herself in a bodybuilding competition, not
Mm.
necessarily because she wants to win it, but because she knows that what it takes to compete requires her to work out in a way to get her body to look the way she wants it to look.
Wow.
I said, okay, there's something about putting a structure in place that allows you to stay on task and see it through.
Mm.
So I said, okay, I know that I want to do some other things outside of just, this mental health practice. Let me put myself in some trainings so that that will support me in doing this. So I
Okay.
had gotten a mailer about this annual conference that they have in DC. And when I looked through the options, I saw at least two trainings pertaining to like working independently. So I took those, I registered for those. And when I went, I thought I was going just for my trainings and my CEUs, right? But there was a break that we were on, and I was walking in the hallway, and there was this table that had a bunch of flyers and
Mhm.
um, like mailers and different things for events that were going on, right? And as
Mhm.
I was looking through everything on the table, I saw this postcard, and I felt like it was talking to me. It was like, do you desire to be in private practice and have
Mm.
control over your own schedule? And it had a list of things that I had either
That
prayed
already,
for
that already,
or, or,
yes.
or knew that I had thought about. And I was like, but this is me. And so that was the start. So I reached out to them. This was a group practice, which is what I'm now still a part of. They had an admin team that took care of the things I didn't want to deal with, like the insurance companies and the billing. And they had furnished offices. I mean, everything was just set up. All I had to do was just show up and do what I love. And
Wow.
so it was the perfect thing to transition into, going from being an employee to being a full-time
Independent.
entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And so that was the start of it. And then I was thinking about, okay, well, what do I need to make this change? And that's when the thought occurred to me that I need to have something that I can trust so that I know my family will still be taken care of and the luxuries that I was accustomed to wouldn't be lost.
Right.
And so I wish I could tell you like a script of what it was, but the thoughts were coming to me because I was open enough to allow this idea to unfold.
Germinate.
Right. I didn't dismiss it. Um, I didn't chuck it up like I'm too old or it's too late. I didn't do
Yeah.
anything to squash it. And because I allowed it to live in me, I was in receptive mode. And whatever way that God was guiding me to make that happen, I was open to it. And so one day the idea came to me, a temp agency. I could do a part-time assignment, and that would be a good bridge between the two.
Yeah.
And then when the idea came, I went with it.
Yeah. You know, it's the idea that stood out to me just now is when you said when it came up for you, the thought of it came up for you, you didn't quiet it. And I do believe many times in life we have these inklings, we have these urges, we have these flashes of inspiration and thought and idea that I believe personally comes from God. And when it comes, the carnal, natural man gets to work, man or woman gets to work doing what he or she does. You're too old. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough education. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough. You don't have enough connections. How are you going to do this? You don't know anything about it. And it's almost as if what the inspiration God has given to us, we like throw it away. And in so many words, what you're saying is you didn't throw it away. You didn't dismiss it. You
Yeah.
allowed it to germinate. What I also heard you saying was you also didn't jump ahead of the process, because I think that's what happens to some people too, right? They get an idea, this thing comes up for them, right? And they don't stifle it, but then they try to go and make it happen, and they're not paying attention to the signs and the movement of God and the universe, right? They're, you know, I use the story. I was talking to a client this week, and I gave her the example of Abraham and Sarah in the Bible. And I'll just quickly tell the story. You know, God came to Abraham and told Abraham, you're going to be a father of many nations. And at the time, Sarah was very old, his wife, and it was like, Abraham was like, how this gonna happen? And Sarah was like, well, how this gonna happen, right? We're too old, right? This is not possible. And then what Sarah did was she went to Abraham and she said, hey, bruh, you know, your handmaid, you know, Hagar, she got some good eggs. Why don't you try with her, right? And he laid with Hagar, and he had Ishmael. But Ishmael wasn't, in terms of what the Bible says, Ishmael wasn't necessarily the promisee, because the promisee was supposed to come from Sarah. Whether people believe this or not, it's just all a metaphor, right? It's a metaphor for the fact that God gave them this plan, like this was going to happen. And because they couldn't understand it in their own strength, they went and tried to make it happen some other way.
Right.
And I think, you know, one thing we want to share is that we're doing an amazing event January 28th called The Big Leap. And the Big Leap is to help women do what you did, right? Not necessarily leave your job or leave your career, whatever your big leap is, being able to navigate holding on to the idea, navigate getting past the limiting beliefs and thoughts,
Allowing yourself to be led,
and
willing to go there.
And be willing to go there. And whatever that step is, whatever that leap is for you, taking the first step. And I'm excited about it. And you talking about your big leap has made me even more excited about it.
Yes. And I think that sometimes we just need support, right? Whether that support be hearing other people's stories and how they took the leap, or having some tangible tools and what's needed to take their own leap.
Yeah.
And it looks different for different women. For some, it may be a leap in the area of their health. Maybe that there's something that they've been working on. Maybe, you know, the doctors are saying, I don't know about that alternative medicine. I don't know that you should, you know, include that in the mix, but something is calling you towards that, right? And so you're willing to add that into your treatment mix. And it could be the game changer of you being a more healthy person. It could be in the area of your finances, your relationship, you name it. And so I'm thrilled to empower women to really connect with that divine inner guidance that will support them in fulfilling their dreams, whatever that may be. And I'm willing to share my story to equip people with the tools to fulfill on it. And that's what the Big Leap is really all about, making it happen.
Making it happen. I'm excited about connecting women together. I do believe, you know, for those of you watching or listening, I appeared on the Boss Girls Guide last night on Clio TV. And one of the things that stood out when I was experiencing the event that I was a part of, women do really empower other women. When we are in the same space and we have let go of airs and all of the other stuff that society says we have to come with when we walk into a room, there is a way that we support one another, lift each other up, hear each other, that sets people on a course for crazy success. And that's what I'm excited about, right? Sharing tools and strategies that we'll share, but for women to be in the room sharing their big leap, and on the other side of the room is probably someone they've never met before, who might have actually taken that leap already.
Absolutely. And something about seeing ourselves and other women can give us the courage and confidence to take that leap.
Yes.
And in addition to that, because a lot of my work up until this point has been one-on-one. And so it's phenomenal for me to be a witness to see my clients manifest the desires of their heart. But there's something about when we come together, right? There's a power in that collective consciousness when we share an intention. And the wave just moves through the room and something
Woo.
happens that you can't even put your fingers around, right? But it's real
Yes.
and empowering. And I would love to create that space for these women and just
Yes.
watch them soar, like really set them in
Yes.
motion to achieve their dreams.
Yes. You know why? Because energy is transferable.
It
And I
is.
know people are probably listening and they've heard that before and they're like, what does that mean? You know, it's the slamming of a door and feeling the air when the door slams. That's energy,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
People sometimes make some of these concepts more mystical and woo-woo than they have to be. My mom, who, for those of you who didn't know, if you don't know, she's in episode 1 of this season, Dr. Lucille. I always quote her because she dropped so many jewels in my childhood. But one of the things she would always tell my brothers and I is that, like, energy exists when you can't see it. And spiritual law is natural law. She would always say, Sunne-Ryse, spiritual law is natural law. You don't separate the two, right? If you go on the top of your roof and you go to jump off, gravity is going to pull you down because that's what gravity. You can pray to God, Allah, Yahweh, whoever you want to pray to. God is not going to defy his own certain laws just because you decided you wanted to go jump off the roof.
Right, right.
This concept of energy that Tanorah and I are talking about, and we are excited about creating on January 28th, 2023, is the fact that women can be in the same space. And once the ideas start flowing, once the strategy starts flowing, it is akin to taking a door and slamming it and the gust of air that you feel when the door slams. The door didn't hit you, but you felt the energy from the door closing.
Yes, and it creates a ripple effect through the room.
Creates a ripple effect.
Right? Every soul feels it.
Every soul feels it. And that is us, January 28th, talking, building, strategizing, crying, laughing, connecting, to take big leaps. What would you tell any woman right now watching us right now? She has a vision, right? She had that thing that you had that was like, I want to switch my career, or I want this for my life. I want better health. I want to save. I want to travel. But she hasn't taken the leap. What do you tell her?
So there's a couple of things. Something that you said that was very significant is you believe that when you have an idea, it's coming from God. And I think one of the reasons why people are quick to dismiss those ideas is because they don't recognize that's who it's coming from.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
And so it's easy to minimize it. So trust that is a divine expression.
Amen.
Wanting to come through you, and give yourself what you need. Look at what you might need to make that happen before you just kind of rule it out and discount it. Ask yourself, what is it that I need to make this happen? What will make a difference for me? And if you're not sure, come to our event, The Big Leap. That's what it's all about. You ladies, I would love for you to be thinking right now about different areas of your life. You know, your career, your health, your finances, your relationships, your family life, travel, recreation, whatever it may be. Think about what you're wanting for yourself that you haven't quite been able to achieve. Spend the day with us. Allow us to equip you with the tools that we have learned through the years we've practiced in our own lives and seen tremendous things occur. And we will be there to support you and build a network of women where you can support each other and make it happen. Because we are not here to be unhappy. We're not here to suffer. We're not here to just want and be without. we are creative beings who are made in the image and likeness, and we can create anything that we desire. And sometimes we just need the tools to make it happen. And
Yeah.
that's what the big leap is all about.
Yeah. I feel it's probably the empath in me. I often feel sad for people who are just existing in life. It I don't want to say it disturbs me, but it bothers me. And it bothers me because I believe in the core of my being that what we were created to do for others, we benefit from. And if we're
Mm,
not doing that thing, we're like a river that's not flowing.
yeah.
Everything just gets stored up and stuck. I was talking to a client a couple weeks ago, and she was talking about how her creativity was stunted, right? Because she didn't have an outlet to express it.
Mm,
And by not having the outlet, she started to feel a little depressed and sad and, just feeling sluggish and physically off. When we aren't fully expressing the things that God put on the inside of us and they have nowhere to go, right? I don't mean to be gross, but I would liken it to if you were eating, and not going to the bathroom.
mm,
A gross kind of analogy, but if you get it, like if you're constantly putting food in, but you're not eliminating, what happens to the body?
mm, mhm.
And I believe when we don't fully express what God has put in us, it's almost like we have spiritual constipation, right? That it's
Yes,
there's no place for it to go. With we feel like we're not our best selves.
absolutely. And a part of you gets suppressed, right? And
Mm,
I can't find the word that I'm thinking of, but it is almost oppressive to the spirit, right? Because it's always yearning for more. Like I talked about, we're here for evolution. And when
yeah,
you don't give yourself the opportunity to expand in the way that you're wanting to, it's oppressive to your spirit. And
yeah,
that will lead you living a life where you're just existing and not really living or thriving, right?
yeah,
Because there's a part of you that's lacking the expression that it's yearning for.
yeah. I used to call it, and it's funny you said it. When I used to minister at my mom's church early on, I used to say it's spiritual anemia,
Mm,
spiritually anemic, right? Where your body is just lacking the full spiritual expression that it desires.
yeah.
And when that happens,
Mm,
anemia, when someone experiences anemia, you feel tired, like you don't have energy, but you're still alive. Your heart is still beating,
yeah.
everything is still functioning, but it's like a lack of vibrance,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
From
Yeah.
truly being who God called you to be. And that's why I say when we are fully living the express life that God has for us to live, it's not just for us, it's actually for others.
Absolutely.
It's the gift that we give other people.
Hmm.
So I love, love, love talking with you, particularly about risk, because, it's a reminder for me, right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
when we're living a full life, you got to get out on that skinny branch. You got to get out on that cliff and kind of look over and think to yourself, what am I missing if I'm not out on that skinny branch risking the branch breaking,
Yeah.
am I really living and existing?
And it's so worth it, Sunny. I mean, the goodness that's on the
Um,
other side of that risk, it is so worth it. I
yeah,
love having control over my schedule. It's what allows me in the middle of the day to be able to be on a podcast,
yeah,
right? It allows me, when I need to replenish, I can go to the temple and do some meditation in the middle of the day or go do my yoga. And that wasn't the life that I had when I was in a 40-hour work week structure,
mm,
where I couldn't design what my day looked like on my own. And
yeah,
so, whatever it takes to make it happen, but we can work that out and trust that it's going to be worth it because what you'll see and experience on the other side of that is everything.
yeah,
I tell people this is one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
yeah. And you look happy.
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
You know, I,
And let me add to that. Had I not taken the risk, I doubt very strongly that I would be this happy. I think
Mm,
I would be stressed, overwhelmed, and probably have some sort of health ailment,
mhm.
because that is one of the consequences of suppressing your desires, and not allowing yourself to really be all that
Yes.
you are capable of being.
Yeah.
And so I would say that's another benefit of taking risks,
Yeah. I
right?
want people listening to also, when they hear you say risk, I want them to also understand and both, right? That you created an and both, not an either or. And I know some people will hear us and they'll hear us talk about taking risks and all of that. Sometimes it could be that you want to keep your 9 to 5, 40-hour work week, but you love baking cakes on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings you
Mm-hmm.
joy to bake cakes. And maybe you don't even want to sell those cakes. You just want the opportunity to bake them because it's in baking them that you are fully your authentic expressed self.
Yeah.
So I want those listening to really understand that when Tanorah and I talk about taking the big leap and the risk, we don't all automatic, it doesn't always mean letting go of what is. It sometimes
Hmm.
is including what you have not included. For some
Wow.
people, it is a letting go, right? But letting go isn't the same big leap for everyone. For
Right.
some people,
Right.
it's not that I have to let go, it's just I have not allowed myself to include this other
Yes.
part.
Sometimes the leap is a adding on.
Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. Well, listen, I know for sure that you all do not want to miss January 28th, 2023,
Mhm.
West Orange, New Jersey. You get Tanorah and DocSunne for a
Yes.
whole day of trainings, workshops, small group sessions, large group sessions, one-on-one coaching from the front of the room
Mhm.
on bringing your desire, that thing for 2023 that you're like, this is it, this is my year. And
Yes.
what we're also offering is a special discount. Bring your girlfriend, right? Why come to the big leap by yourself when you could bring a friend and you can save?
Mhm.
So in the link for this video, you'll find a registration link and a website for more information about the big leap. And, Tanorah, where can everyone find you, if they want to connect with you?
At Soul Restoration LLC.
There we go. And you all know where to find me. I'm at DocSunne Inspo on Instagram, on something on TikTok, whatever, or go to my website, www.drsunrise.com. So, you know how I always end. I love you, good people. I love you like cook food. We will see you on January 28th,
Yes.
2023 for the big leap. The
And
big
this is
leap.
a game changer.
It's a
Make
game.
2023 the year that changed it all.
The year that changed it all. This is your year. That's prophetic. This is your
Yes.
year. 2023 is the year that you take the big leap. Start it off with Tanorah and I. You will not regret it. So, love you, good people. I love you, love you, love you like cook food.
The time is now. Wait no further.
Yeah.